Okay, I know what this video looks like title and in like title wise. No, I'm not quitting YouTube. That I do not want you to get the idea. I'm never gonna quit YouTube. I'm never taking a break. This is not an announcement of that. But I do want to talk about something that's honestly. I do apologize for not having a microphone with me. It's in the car and I don't want to go get it because honestly, those are my knees, by the way, because I'm not in the mood to go get it. Kneecap alert. But I need to talk about something. Surprise. Okay, I need to actually put up my camera because I'm not organized right now. I'm so sorry. I'm not as organized not like my last video was organized at all, but the internet is not the same as it used to be. Like, I feel like, and I think that it's been true for so many years that the internet is always changing and that people are always changing and the way that people act and people perceive things is always going to be changing, no matter where you are or what we're talking about. Everything is always changing. But the internet before, I feel like, used to be such a positive space. And I'm not saying that everything on the internet was safe and positive, and by before I mean like the 2010s, 2010 to like 2019, I would say, or 2020 actually. 2020 was a nice time to be on the internet. Those are also the only times that I was ever on the internet, was 2020, not 2020, 2010 to 2020 were the only times that I was ever exposed to the internet, which is pretty much the whole entire time I've been alive, by the way. I was introduced to the internet around, I think, 2016, when I was like 6, by the way. I mean, obviously I knew it existed before that, but I was too young to even need to use it. But I think I got my first phone at 11. It was sorry. I got my first like phone at like 9. It wasn't like a phone, it was an iPod. But it was essentially a phone. It wasn't like one of those little ones. It was basically just a really, really small phone. It was like about this big, I think. And it worked exactly like a phone. It had like internet, whatever. So I basically got my first phone at like 9. But before that, I did use like computers. I had a computer, and that was, I think, the first time I ever actually like was exposed to like the internet and like technology was when I was like 6 or 5. Because I started playing Minecraft at 5, but then I started playing computer and everything at like 6, and like online games at 7. And I think when the internet first came to my life is when I first started to have like a sense of self. I feel like there was so much to explore, and it really was such a safe haven for me, because I think I only had that happens every single time I record. Okay, I think that I only had one bad experience when I was younger, but I mean, like, on the internet when I was younger, and I think everyone's experience on the internet is different because we're all on a different part of the internet, you know? Like, I've been on so many different areas of the internet, but I've always been on safe and comfortable and positive spaces, I feel like. Like, for example, I feel like the furry community is mostly where I'm at in the internet sort of realm. And I've been on there since maybe I was 10. I joined the furry community at 10, and it's always been a super nice and positive space. It's always been, like, no matter who you were or, like, the way that you acted, as long as you're on the right side of the furry community, you weren't being judged. Like, for example, when I was, like, 7 or 8, I was really into, like, dragons and stuff, like, mythical creatures, and I played Roblox a lot, and I don't think I was judged a single time on that side of the internet, because I was on the right side of the internet where, like, good people were, and you wouldn't get judged no matter who you were, as long as you were a good person, of course. I think there was one time, no, that wasn't recent, sorry, and then I was 9, I got really into Five Nights at Freddy's, and into, like, living tombstones, CG5-esque, video games. Like, I was really into all these basics, Bendy and the Ink Machine. I really like Finance at Freddy's. I was super into Tattletale. And I still low-key am, because it's such a safe space on the internet. Those spaces aren't very habited anymore, I've noticed, which is, I mean, obviously people, their interests change, but I do notice that when I was on those sides of the internet, I literally never got judged. Like, I never was even afraid of being judged. I didn't hesitate to make the most corny ass OC on, like, animatronic world on Roblox. I was never hesitant to have a really, really sad backstory. I never even thought about being judged, because I'd never been judged before. And I feel like everything around those times, no matter what side of the internet you were on, as long as it was on, like, a creative side, I feel like, obviously it's not true for every single area, but for the most part, I feel like you weren't judged. I felt like no matter what character you used, no matter what, like, games you played, no matter what communities you were in, people were just accepting all over. And I think that not everyone has an experience with that, because not everyone was on the side of the internet that I was on. But I think we can all collectively agree that the internet is not the same as it used to be. I feel like even though I'm on the creative side of the internet still, with, like, the furry community and the brony community and Five Nights at Freddy's and, like, all these different communities, even though I'm on, like, the best communities you could be on, the least judgmental communities you could be in, everywhere I go on the internet now is just negativity, you know? And that's not to say that I'm ever gonna get off the internet. I honestly don't think I ever will. I feel like no amount of negativity can ever make me get off the internet, just because I feel like I'm not that easily discouraged. But also just because the internet's been my home since I was, like, 6. About 6. I'm not sure. And I do know that obviously there's not gonna be all positive spaces on the internet. Sorry, I'm getting easily distracted right now. I do know that no matter where you are, what community you're in, there's always gonna be a bad side. But I felt like I was never truly exposed to the bad sides of communities until I was, like, 9, or, like, not 9, like 10, like 11 maybe, actually, because I feel like over time people just didn't care. Like, people, like, didn't care about being rude. I feel like over time, and I feel like a lot of this has to do with the comedy community, and that sounds really, really specific, but I've noticed that the more that so many people are influenced by what's funny, you know, like, and to be honest, I get it, you know, comedy is awesome. Like, I consider myself, I don't know, okay, I'm not a comedian, but I guess I would consider myself somewhat funny sometimes. I like to make comedy content sometimes, but you have to be careful what you say, you know, like, I feel like I'm adding nothing to this. I feel like I'm saying nothing, but in my head I feel like I'm saying what I need to say, but I feel like, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm saying nothing, but just trust me. I feel like so many people are influenced now by what's funny, and, like, that's been true for centuries. People love comedy. People have always loved comedy. Comedy's been around since, like, the Renaissance era. But before, I feel like comedy wasn't problematic. I feel like, at least for the most part on the internet, there wasn't, like, people, and I could be wrong because I was on a different side of the internet. I wasn't on any side of the internet that wasn't creative. But I felt like it used to be a lot less problematic with comedy. There wasn't, like, quote unquote dark humor. There wasn't, like, people, like, making fun of furries just for, like, fun to laugh, you know? And I feel like it was funny. Like, stuff was funny back then. Like, jokes had a punchline. Jokes made sense. Or, like, even if they didn't make sense, they weren't, like, problematic. Like, when I was, like, 10 or 9, for example, I used to always say, like, oof. Which, like, arguably isn't funny. But, like, I mean, at least it wasn't hurting anyone. At least it wasn't targeting a group of people. And now, I feel like, I don't know if it sounds like I'm, like, a little late to the trend, but I feel like I've just started to notice that all there is now is just like dark humor and like people targeting a group of people for fun. And it's, people find it funny. I'm not sure why. And whenever you ask them, whenever you tell them like to not do that, or say them like it's not okay to just make the entire basis of your humor like sexism or like racism or homophobia, they just brush it off. And it's, these are the most unbothered people, you know. And you know, go do that, be unbothered, be yourself, but that doesn't mean that you should just not take into account of what anyone says, you know. Like, people just don't care what your opinion is now, like, and you can tell them, like, you could tell them that making that joke will kill millions of people, but they just won't care, you know. Like, they'll be like, oh, well, that joke's actually not funny because you're targeting a specific group of people and you're putting down other people just to be funny. And they just don't care, you know. I have a personal experience with this where, like, I'll tell this person, like, not to kind of specify this person, like, it's actually not funny, like, you shouldn't just target people and make that entire basis of your humor. And they'll just be like, but it is funny, though. Like, it's not. Like, nobody laughed. Like, it's so much more it's a little bit less it's so easy to just make fun of people. And my opinion is that if you think dark humor is funny and that's the only basis of your humor, you're just unfunny and like you're just lazy, like, because all you're doing is pointing at a group of people and being like, haha. Like, you're not like, or like people who joke about like Nazis or stuff, like, or say like make jokes about like Jewish people and then use the excuse of, oh, well, there's no Jewish people here. I'm like, okay, well, you're still anti-Semitic, you know. Like, or people, like, you can't just like say a slur and be like, just kidding, like, oh, well, it's just a joke. Like, you can't just do that, you know. And I think people really I think it always does tie back to so many of the issues I talk about just tie back to what's popular, you know. Like, people will always follow what's popular and will always trend hop whatever's on. People will be so easily influenced as to what is on their feed and on the internet or what other people are doing. And I think that it is a huge problem, especially when it comes to like comedy, because comedy it's so easy to influence people by comedy. It's so easy to influence people by what they think is funny, because they're gonna find it funny, and then they're gonna, obviously, finding something funny is fun, being amused is fun, and people are just gonna think that makes it okay. Also, how is dark humor even funny? Like, I don't if you find it funny, like, there's something wrong with your head, because you shouldn't just be like, oh, well, there's this guy who was, I don't remember who he was, but if I find him, I'll tag him in the bio. I probably won't, but he was like, oh, well, you shouldn't, he's like, oh, like, quoting someone, like, you shouldn't joke about rape, and he's like, okay, I won't joke about rape, and then it showed him, like, in a doorway. I don't know if you guys get that, but it was, like, like, that's not, like, haha, rape, so funny, that literally affects more than half of, like, actually, no, I'm not sure if that's the correct statistic, I could be misremembering, but that affects so many people a year. Like, that is not funny. Like, you're only allowed to joke about that if you yourself have dealt with that, and you've made it clear that you have dealt with that, because that's a coping mechanism, and that's fine. But you will never know what it's like to have to experience that, and have to go through something so traumatic, and then just brush it off as it's just a joke. Like, chill, oh my god, chill out jokes, it's just a liberal. But it's like, you can't just, like, you're never gonna get through anything in life if you just brush everything off by saying you guys are all just snowflakes, because you can't just not take anyone's feelings into account. Believe it or not, other people's opinions, like, not opinions, other people's feelings do matter. And I know that a lot of people say, like, other people's opinions don't matter, which is true in most cases if you're talking about, like, how you dress or, like, things that are generally harmless. But if you're doing something that is inherently problematic and people are giving you their opinion, you should probably listen, because chances are you probably know that it's problematic. Or even if you don't, listen to people, you know, like, don't just brush it off with saying, like, I don't care. You know, you can't just brush everything off. And I made that point in my last podcast, that you can't just brush everything off. You can't just say that it's just like, oh, whatever, it's what I want to do, you know? And for the most part, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because dark comedy is the only comedy that I can find on the internet now. And keep in mind, I'm only on YouTube. Like, I'm on a couple other platforms, but, like, I barely use them. You know, like, and also on there, I've noticed it's just dark humor or people making fun of certain, like, marginalized groups just to be funny. And most of the time, nobody finds it funny. You know, like, or people, like, quote-unquote do, but they just do it because they think that makes them cool. And the reason that I bring that up once again is because comedy is a core part of the internet, and that's why I feel like the internet feels like such an unsafe place now, is because all there is dark comedy or people making fun of people just for like shits and giggles and then saying that it's a joke. It just feels like the new like excuse for doing anything. Like, you can't just like steal someone's car and be like, it's just a joke. I said it's just a liberal. It's like, it's just a joke. It's just dark humor. Like, because obviously you get fucking arrested. Like, you can't just make fun of a certain group of people and then just say it's just a joke. You know, like, and people are like, I do whatever I want. Like, I know it sounds like I'm adding absolutely nothing. My brain is not working, but this is kind of just me ranting because I feel like nothing I'm saying right now is making sense. But before, I felt like I do notice that there's just such a correlation between the kind of humor that's around or the kind of humor that's popular and the way people look at things. Like, before, it was just nonsensical memes like oof or like Nyan Cat that didn't really make sense but didn't hurt anyone. And honestly, Nyan Cat is cool as well. I like Nyan Cat. But now, like, jokes still don't have a punchline, but they're just targeting a random person. You know, like, you can't just, I don't know, but there is a specific group of people that kind of, okay, my storage ran out. I had to restart it. But there is a certain group of people that just think that they can say anything. Like, because when I'm talking about dark humor, I more mean like surface level, like, oh, trans people are so like weird or whatever. Like, but if you even go deeper down the iceberg, oh my god, there's people who just don't care. Like, there's people who literally will say the most like insane things and will say it's just a joke. You know, like, there's a point where it's just not a joke anymore, because even if you say it's a joke, you still said something racist. You know, like, you can't just say anything and then say it's a joke. You know, like, what, you can't even joke around anymore? No, it's really easy to joke around, but you just don't have to. You don't have to target a group of people to be funny. Like, you know, you don't have to be racist to be funny, you know? And there are so many people right now that like are amazing comedians who don't target anyone and are very clearly good people. Like, you can't just quote unquote joke around. You can't just say everything's a joke, because at the end of the day, you are still racist. Even if it's a joke, you're still racist. And it just really does just tie back to what I guess is popular, because people just see other people doing it and think it's okay. And I've heard the excuse so many times of, oh, well, everyone else does it. I'm like, that does not make it okay. Like, you should still be able to have morals on what's okay and what's not, you know? And this still does kind of all come back to the internet, because I feel like now, even in like the furry, in the animation meme community, and just the overall like creative community, like the whole creative part of the internet right now, you can get judged no matter what you do. And before, it was like, it doesn't matter what you do, you won't get judged. But now it's the exact opposite. You can get judged no matter what you do. I've had people tell me that my persona is too quote unquote boring or too bland, even though he has a whole entire fucking lore backstory. But they're always said by people who haven't created anything in their life. And I'm like, how about you actually create something and come back to me when you've made anything? Or like, you can just make an animation and people will pick out every single part of it that they don't like, but then go comment on like Tiff's video and be like, oh, I love your animation. Because people are always gonna target small artists and target people who aren't big. But the moment someone gets a lot of attention and fame, people are gonna target them. And that could be positive targeting and negative targeting. But now it's just negative targeting. In the Big 25, it's just, And the internet, the creative part of the internet used to be such a safe haven, I feel like, and it still is for me, you know, even if there is a lot of negativity. I feel like now it is still maybe a safe haven for me, but not for a lot of people. A lot of people aren't even on the internet anymore because it's just such a negative space, I feel like. And that's not to say there isn't any positive parts of the internet, because there definitely is. Like, I feel like I'm on a really good part of the internet, but a lot of people just kind of are really judgmental now. And they could even be in the same community, in the same, like, side of the internet, but people are still gonna judge you. You know, like, I'll hop on Ponytown and either nobody will talk to me, or when I'll come up to someone, they'll be weirded out, you know, like, but before, like, you could just hang out with anyone and they wouldn't care, you know? And I'm not just trying to make this video to, like, bitch and complain, but I just kind of wanted to say that I do see that there's a correlation between comedy and just the state of the internet, I feel like, and just the way people act. But I do believe that what you consume is what you become, because I've always consumed, like, the stuff that I enjoy now, and it is truly just who I am at this rate. So just, my message to you is just be careful what you consume. Be careful what you feed your brain, because you will become that one day, and be careful who you support, because you could do your research, okay? Don't just do your research. Don't just support random people, because you don't know what they could be up to. So that's my nonsensical rant for the day. Thank you all for watching. I love you guys so much. Bye.